In this podcast, we're going to talk about choosing the right course level for you. We're talking about Excel. My name's Analia Pisani from AZ Solutions. So most of the time people like to think of enrolling in a course as introduction, intermediate and advanced, and that's how they like to focus and bundle themselves into. So if you're thinking about doing an Excel course, how do I know I should enroll into an introduction course or intermediate or an advanced? Well, if Excel is completely new to you and you haven't played with it much, then I would say you're an introduction person. Are you not sure how to start a formula? Do you get there but struggle? Then you're introduction. Intermediate, if you play with it a bit and you get stuck on formulas and functions, I would say intermediate. In the intermediate courses, we tend to cover a lot of formulas and functions. Now, you might be able to do a basic formula, get around okay, but need to work around multiple sheets or summarizing and returning data in other locations. Then intermediate is the area where we cover those concepts. Now, to consider yourself, should I book into an advanced course? Then it's more about the purpose of what it is that you want to do with that data. That's what we cover in an advanced course. So if you're into needing to manipulate data, you're importing data, you need to take out extra spaces, tidy it up, make it uppercase, lowercase, get rid of columns, maybe doing some automated steps, then that's macros, then that would be an advanced course that you would want to book into. If you're into doing statistical information or needing to do some statistics, then that's an advanced course as well. If none of those three areas quite fit what you're after, there is one more level, and that's Excel VBA. So if you're about recording information, so you may have done macros, but they're not quite getting you to what you need to do some kind of looping information. Sometimes you need to do a bit of testing. Does this sheet have the name that I want? Then go check an existing sheet if it's not. So you're doing kind of like a loop or an if sort of testing, and that could be maybe you need Excel VBA. If you want to customize some prompts and messages or design like a little bit of a form where it pops up and people fill in the form and then they hit OK and the information you typed in the form then gets put into the various spreadsheets, then Excel VBA will do that for you. So that's how to sort of take a look at, well, should I book into intro, intermediate and advanced? Whilst people do like to pigeonhole themselves, I'll go into a little bit more depth into the Excel introduction and what would be covered in an Excel introduction course. All right, so in an Excel introduction course, we'd cover things like opening an existing spreadsheet, playing around with the templates, getting to know your environment and the terminology. You may know how to do things and you just do them instinctively, but if somebody looked over your shoulder and said, click on the ribbon, you'd go, what's the ribbon? So just getting all of that final little detailed information. Saving and switching between workbooks, opening and closing multiple workbooks. Now, the next thing that's really important is navigation. Being able to navigate efficiently. So in Excel Introduction, we'll take you through how to quickly get to the beginning, the end of your document, quickly be able to select a range of cells. Do what's called the freeze pane. Sometimes you've got a very lengthy piece of information in column A, but you also have very important information in column AA or Z, and you need to be able to see the two next to each other or near each other. The freeze pane or splitting will help you with that. We'll go through making sure you can enter data and understand why it's entering, why is the ribbon area grayed out when I click or double click or where I am. Undoing, redoing, deleting, inserting columns, rows, that sort of thing. Using what's called autocomplete. Sometimes when you're working with a list, you just start typing a little bit of information and it will complete it for you because it had already been entered in the ones above. Autofill, so when we do formulas and functions, we can fill that formula, that function further down. Flash fill is when you have Analia Pisani, so first name, surname, going down a list, but you want to make another column with just the surnames in it. You can use this tool for flash fill to do it really well. Sequence and series in custom lists. So this is when you want to set up patterns. Sometimes you put the number 1, you drag it down, and you might get 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, but what you were actually after is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll show you how to do that sort of thing. Then we'll do the formulas functions. So there's a difference between formulas and functions, and that is that formulas are plus, minus, multiply, divide. So anything you can do on the calculator, whereas functions, there's over 300 different functions that Excel has, like sum, average, maximum, minimum, count, VLOOKUP, if, XLOOKUP. All of these are functions. So obviously we're not going to take a look at all of them, so we'll do just the bare minimum, so sum, average, maximum, minimum, count kind of functions for an introduction level. We'll also take a look at what's called relative cell reference and absolute cell referencing. Now this is really important because it comes up all the time. So absolute cell referencing is when you're in a formula or a function and you see someone put in a $, which can be either in front of the letter or it can be in front of the number, or it can be both. And there is a combination, and you need to understand all three combinations and how to use them correctly. At an introduction level, the other thing we'll take a look at is how to do some formatting. So formatting and conditional formatting is a beautiful feature where you can select a whole bunch of figures and have them splash out in colour if they meet a criteria. For example, if the figure is over 10, you might want it to splash out in colour, or even text. You might have completed, in progress, and anything that's in progress you might want it splashed out red in colour, and that's what conditional formatting can do for you. Getting the $signs, the percentages, the decimals happening, so we'll deal with all of that. Using a tool called the Format Painter. It's a great tool. Once you've got a handle on font size, colour, you might say, great, thanks, now I need to apply it again and again and again in various places. So what you want to do is use the Format Painter, and that will allow you to apply it in multiple places. Copying and pasting, most people can do copying and pasting, but there are so many different techniques that you can use for copying and pasting, and we'll cover all of them. There's also a beautiful feature called Format as Table. People usually look at this and go, great, now I can do pretty colours for every second row. It's so much more than that. I'll leave the mystery for when you book into the course, of course. Doing page breaks, previews, inserting headers, footers, page setup. Those are the kinds of things we'll cover in an introduction course. Now, if you're more interested in the intermediate level course, in that area, it's more about the more in depth into formulas and functions. That's what this course tends to cover more about. So again, we'll cover the absolute cell referencing. We'll cover mixed cell referencing. That's all of the versions of the $sign being in front of the letter, in front of the number, or on both. We'll take a look at creating a name for a group of cells and then using that in formulas and functions. In terms of functions, we would, in the intermediate level, we'll take a look at the if functions, sum if, count if, nesting functions. That means one function inside another, Lots of other variations of the if function. The VLOOKUP, which is the most popular function. So VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. We'll take a look at creating arrays where you can use this method instead of thinking about your absolute cell referencing. Working with multiple sheets, inserting, naming, deleting, moving, copying, linking sheets. So linking information from one workbook to another or one sheet to another. Consolidating information. So you might have several sheets given to each different department for their expenses, but you now need to bring it and marry it up together. And we can use 3D formulas or data consolidate to achieve that really well. Sorting, filtering by colour. protecting your workbook on your sheets, and creating graphs. So these are the concepts that we would cover at an intermediate level. And at an advanced level, it's more about mixing the data, manipulating and pulling out what you need in the data. A little bit on the functions. So in terms of functions, we would cover the sum if, count if, nested functions, the if family functions. Creating range names, we would also cover this in advanced. Not everybody follows through and does intro, intermediate and advanced. Some people would just jump into the advanced course. So you need to make sure you know about the range names because it makes it so good when you're dealing with functions, especially the functions like the VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, choose, index, match, if, error, and any other functions that the clients ask me for, I'm happy to deliver. Then functions for cleanup, what I call cleaning up data. So that is the left, the right, concatenate, text. We'll do things like the goal seek, solver, scenario, sort of about data analyzing features. Data validation, so little drop-down lists. Subtotaling, so grouping, summarizing, or the pivot tables, that's the other alternative to subtotaling. And the last module would be the dealing with macros, creating a macro, repetitive set of instructions. These are the things that I would cover, and that should give you a pretty good overall picture of what's covered in intro, intermediate, and in advanced. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast or have a look at our YouTube video under Analia Pisani.